In the world of television sportscasters, 34-year-old Heidi Soliday may be atypical. First of all, there aren't many women in her line of work. And the fact that she sometimes competes in the events on which she's reporting makes it a unique situation.
I can be like just loonier than loony.
Oh, she was a blast. We had so much fun. We called her Heidi Ho.
She's a very lively person.
She's very outgoing, extremely gregarious, and not at all a shrieking violet or wallflower type of person at all.
There is no one word to describe Heidi Soliday. Her talents, her passion, and her personality resonate with different people, from coworkers to viewers, in different ways. But there is one thing that Heidi Soliday was that any viewpoint can agree on. Before her broadcasting career started, Soliday was a very talented athlete.
I was searching for Heidi and didn't know it was Heidi at the time. I did a feature in the 1970s called Kevin Cooney Covers Iowa. It was kind of an on-the-road feature story type beat. Did it for several years. And I heard that there was this girl in West Des Moines that was on the national luge team. I didn't know how to find out. I called all around because I thought this would be a great story to find someone who was involved in this winter sport that few people knew about at the time. Turns out it was Heidi. I found out years later, or a few years later, that it was Heidi. And so it was just kind of ironic that I was searching for her at the time and did not know, that it was Heidi. I just was trying to track down this elusive sort of person that turned out to be, one of my coworkers for the next 30 years or so.
When Soliday began her professional broadcasting career at KCCI TV in Des Moines, Iowa, no one knew just how recognizable she would become over the next 31 years. However, it didn't take 31 years for her coworkers to recognize one thing above all others.
She always had this big, infectious laugh. When she walked into the newsroom, you could tell Heidi was there.
She had us laughing. Her laugh is very infectious.
Okay. That laugh entered the world of sports broadcasting in a time when very few women were involved. She was the first ever female sports reporter in KCCI's history. That said, being a woman in a very male-dominated industry never fazed her.
Okay, Bobby Knight. One time I went up to Cedar Rapids for it was the ACC Big Ten Challenge. First time they'd ever had something like this. Al McGuire was like a color guy, and Bobby Knight was coaching or something, and I was one-man banding it, and I interviewed him. Before he started the interview, he said something like, "Did anyone ever tell you you have a nice-looking ass?" This is on camera. Okay, so now, that's kind of bad, right?
Larry did a really good job. I told him to take a picture of his testicles. And so he would always have something to remember them by if he ever took another shot like he did at that last shot. Heidi, that's T-E-S-T-I-C-L-E-S.
So I thought, well, he's trying to test me. He's trying to test me and see if I'm a... So what I did back was I just said, well, yours isn't bad either. And then I just kept on doing the interview. Because I felt like fending it off by indifference was better than, well, I've never in my world, and getting mad.
She grew up in a family with a lot of kids and a lot of brothers, so I think it rolled off her back. And we weren't there to make a statement, we were there to do a job.
I just never felt out of place with guys, and so I didn't really think about being a woman, and I didn't ever really think about making that be the thing that would get me further, I always wanted to be the best that I could be, not because I was a woman, but because I didn't want to be subpar. You don't want to ever get credit for being good if you aren't good, I mean, I wouldn't want to be given credit for being very good if it was just because I was a woman, because that's kind of ridiculous.
And Soliday's work was far from subpar, enough so that following Pete Taylor's departure from the station in 1991, KCCI promoted her to sports director, the first woman to ever hold that position at any news station in the United States. There were no surprises there.
I think I made a statement at the time that I would have been pissed if I hadn't gotten hired. I would have been mad about that, because why wouldn't I be hired? I'd worked there a long time. I should be hired.
Heidi was kind of the number 2 person in the sports department, so it was only natural that she would get the sports director's job when Pete Taylor left and went up to Iowa State to work there. So, Heidi just, took her particular style that she had on the weekends. She was a weekend anchor, I think, at the time, and just brought that to Monday through Friday. Slid right in. There wasn't any. I don't think there was any problem. I don't think, at least not that I'm aware of, I don't think there was any blowback of having a female sports director.
Being sports director allowed for Soliday to take her creativity and personality to new heights. The most prime example being the Soliday Sports Challenge.
The Soliday Sports Challenge. Or Heidi. Heidi's friend.
Heidi.
Heidi's brother.
Heidi.
Heidi's father.
Heidi.
And that's a cue to get out of here.
Well, Heidi, we won fair and square. You want your money now, or do you want me to send you a check?
Fair and square? This wasn't fair and square. I'm not Heidi. I'm Nick Nurse, head coach at Grandview College.
Gee, I thought you looked different.
Soliday's career as sports director brought her many opportunities to cover big sporting events.
Legendary coaches, legendary players. She covered the Hawkeyes. She went to the Rose Bowl. She did all sorts of coverage like this.
Perhaps the most extensive athlete coverage she ever did, though, was on Iowa Hawkeyes quarterback Chuck Long and his hunt for the 1985 Heisman Trophy. Long ended up finishing second in the voting behind Bo Jackson.
Despite the fact that he didn't win, Long is not disappointed, just relieved that the waiting is over.
I'm glad it's over. I'm glad they made the announcement, because the last 15 minutes I was going to die.
Being in the sports director's chair also allowed her to delegate work in the sports department as she saw fit.
And here to bring it to you is my mom. Hey, Mom, what's going on over at the Southeast Polk Gym?
Well, there's a lot of boys out here throwing basketballs around. So I guess we're going to have Friday night hoops between Dowling and Southeast Polk.
Soliday was an instantly recognizable face throughout central Iowa. So much so that having a woman in sports became just as normal as anything.
People in other parts of the country, I think it was kind of revolutionary to put a female in that spot, even though females were playing sports. It wasn't very common for a female to take that seat on our set, on the left side of the set where the sportscaster was. So we here in central Iowa who grew up watching KCCI essentially got to see what other parts of the country didn't, a female in that role.
After a 31-year tenure at KCCI, Soliday and the station parted ways. Her departure left a void, both in the community and in the newsroom.
I think it was different when Heidi left because there was no more Heidi Soliday.
My name's Opie Chomper Romper, and my owner, Heidi Soliday, dragged me to a park in Des Moines recently for the second annual dog jog. Did I want to go? Yeah, I guess so.
It wasn't like KCCI wasn't covering sports or anything anymore, but you didn't get Heidi's perspective, you didn't get Heidi's personality, you didn't get that laugh.
Want to do that stand-up now?
Should I?
Though her personality, talent, and laugh were lost at KCCI, there was plenty she left behind, namely a legacy that will not easily be forgotten, from a personality that should never be unknown. Heidi Soliday will be remembered as a unique personality, a first in the field, a game changer.
I would hope she opened the doors. I mean, I remember watching television when I was young and seeing national female reporters and thinking, I'd like to do that. Why can't I do that? I'm hoping that people did the same thing with Heidi, where they saw her out and about, her interviewing. And so I'm hoping she inspired other young people, whether it's boys or girls, to go into something like this, to show that it's fun. You can have a lot of fun, but you can also be doing your job at the same time. That's pretty neat.
When you turn on ESPN and you see the Erin Andrews and you see the Michelle Tafoyas on Sunday Night Football, and that simply didn't happen 20 and 30 years ago when she became a sports director here in Central Iowa. So whether it was intentional or not, I think simply walking through that door and taking that role did change the path for a lot of people who came after him.
For Hawkeye Preview 85, this is Heidi Soliday.